Hi and welcome again. Today we will continue with our communication mini-series in which we already talked about the Ext.Ajax.requests, and today I would like to show you how you can implement an app global base URL so that you then don't have to rewrite wherever you are the same URL, base URL. And without further ado, let's go. Okay, so the last time we talked about Ext.Ajax.request and we added this object in here. And in here we used the URL with all this path, with this long path, which I want to use as a base URL for today. So let me just get rid of this part, close it, open our what I prepared for today, and let's take a look at why and how I can use this shortened part. So the first thing I would like to do is somewhere on the launch, during the initialization, I would like to define something like this. Most of the apps I build go with something like com settings URL, and then they have something like base, and they would go with this part. So whatever you prefer, just for the means of today, I would like to go with com base URL, com, because my application is named com, and I just prepared this base URL, and wherever I'm going is apps com resources sim, and this should be my base path. So that in here I can use users, and we already talked about these two with the URL. So how do I get this working? I prepared something in here, which is my utility for the base URL. My alternate class name, I don't really need that. I just added in here for convenience. And in here I'm saying I require Ext.Ajax for this. And in the config, I'm setting the base URL. And in here I'm saying, okay, this is my base URL. And then I say init config and Ext.Ajax on before the request starts. I'm adding this in here. So I moved basically this to my config path from here so that I do not have to add it in here. I will talk to you later about why I added it in here. But for now, let's just go for a singleton. And within that singleton, we're defining as a config the base URL. And this says Ext.Ajax on before request. So on before every request we're starting. This goes for Ext.Ajax.request and for our store loading. We want to run this method. And in the method, we do get the connection and options. And from the options, we are changing the URL to the base URL plus the URL, in my case in here, it is users. So I hope that users will get my base URL in front of it. So let me just rerun this. And as you can see, users got run on apps, com, resource, sim users, and so on. So it loaded correctly. This is one way to do it. Going with a singleton, and the constructor will be automatically run on launch of the application, so that we do not have to care about this any longer. And this will automatically add to Ext.Ajax always the before request, a listener, So whenever I go with Ext.Ajax.request, at a certain point, this will fire an event before request. And then I would like to add to the URL my base URL. That's basically it. So that's pretty easy. So this is one way to go. And let me just open it in here. This is a different way to go, as I explained before. We could also define our URL in here, run the users part instead of using this here. We can use an override. Let me add that here. So we can override Ext.Data.Connection and say request, and I would like to add the com base URL. And you remember when I added this to the launch of the application, com base URL, and I just add the URL which we so far have, and then this one would do exactly the same. Just for convenience to show this to you, within options we have the scope, the failure, whatever we define. If we define a foo, so in here I defined foo. If we define a foo in there, we do get this information in here too. And sometimes this is a cool thing to do. Probably I'll do another video about what we can do with that. And this would really help us. If we go, for example, in here, set options, this is called after request. In options, we could go, okay, if we do have foo equals false, then add options backend version. And as soon as we get the request resolved, we can figure out, okay, these options were added to the call so that for a specific call, we can do something completely different. But this is probably something for later use. For now, you can go either with using a singleton, saying for the constructor Ext.Ajax on before request, I would like to add the base URL, or but not and. Either or. Go with this singleton or with an override. Or you go with this override for Ext.Data.Connection, and then you just override the request. Remember to use this me call parent arguments to ensure that the original request will be running too. And in here you can add your custom base URL to all the URLs. If you're going with this one, you could also say, you remember that we do have foo in here. We could also add something like a schema and say, if the Ext.Ajax request had the following schema, then use a different base URL or add something else to the end. But we will get into more details about schema in a different workshop. For today, just remember, either go with the override and override this request part, or go with the singleton and in the constructor just add these two lines and you're good to go. That's basically it for today. So if you liked what you see, please leave a subscription. And so the next time we will talk about a bit more detailed information. And yeah, leave me a comment what else you're interested in about communication to the backend, and we might talk about that too. So see you later.